Okay, so Friday, Ice Cube, hip hop artist, director, actor, Ice Cube was on the Bill Maher show. Now, he was scheduled to already appear on the Bill Maher show to talk about the anniversary of a CD that he had. I forgot the name of the CD. But he was already scheduled to be on the show, okay? On Real Time with Bill Maher, HBO. So we know last Friday, Bill Maher told a ridiculous joke and used the term house N-word. He was speaking to Senator Ben Sasse, a Republican from Nebraska. And Ben Sasse said something to the effect that, we're going to be out in the field working or something like that. And Bill Maher said that he was a house N-word, okay? So there's a lot of criticism behind this. Articles have been written about it, etc. A lot of talk on social media. And Bill Maher has made ignorant comments in the past as well. Two good articles to check out about this. One is from TheRoot.com, written by Angela Helm. Ice Cube to Bill Maher. White folks get a little too familiar when they date black, because Bill Maher has dated African American women in the past. I don't know what he's doing now, but that's still not an excuse. And the Washington Post had a good article from Christine Phillips. That's our word, and you can't have it back. Ice Cube confronts Bill Maher for using the N-word, right? So in the article from TheRoot.com, they have the 8-minute clip from when Ice Cube was on the show. So you can check that out in that article. But Georgetown professor Dr. Michael Eric Dyson was on as well. And Bill Maher told Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, he said, I want you to school me. I did a bad thing. He said, for black folks, that word, I don't care who you are, has caused pain. This is what Dr. Dyson said. I'm not here to do that. Yeah, I'm sorry, this is what Bill Maher said. I'm not here to do that. It doesn't matter that it wasn't said in malice. It wasn't. I brought pain to people. Okay? So Ice Cube says, I still think you need to get to the root of the psyche, because I think there's a lot of guys out there who cross the line because they're a little too familiar, or they think they're too familiar, or guys that, might have a black girlfriend or two that made them Kool-Aid every now and then they think they can cross the line. Now, TheRoot.com had a tweet on Twitter that called Bill Maher a habitual line stepper, which goes back to the Dave Chappelle show on Comedy Central and the Charlie Murphy skit, where Charlie Murphy calls somebody a habitual line stepper. So Ice Cube goes on to say, he says, and they can't, okay? So he's referring to white men that date African American women who get too familiar and think they can use the N-word. He said they can't. He said, it's a word that has been used against us. It's like a knife. You can use it as a weapon, or you can use it as a tool. It's when you use it as a weapon against us by white people, and we're not going to let it happen again. Okay, he said it's when you use it as a weapon against us by white people, and we're not going to let it happen again because it's not cool. That's our word, and you can't have it back. Tell that to LeBron James, that had an N-word spray painted outside his home. He said it's not cool because when I hear my homie say it, it don't feel like venom. When I hear a white person say it, it feel like that knife stabbing you, even if they don't mean to. Okay, so this is what happened. You can check out the video. Bill Maher apologized multiple times. We see if he crosses the line again. Some people are talking about economic boycotts, things like this. If you want to do economic boycotts, team up with colorofchange.org, because colorofchange.org was at the forefront of getting Bill O'Reilly off the air. Colorofchange.org, African American organization, right? So what's interesting is if you have a hip hop artist who made his claim to fame was in a group called N-Words with Attitude. I like Ice Cube. He's halfway right with this. Okay. He said it's our word now. Yeah, right. Okay. You can believe that if you want to. You're operating based upon an illusion. See, if we really want to tell the truth, then we have to ask the question, why is it that African Americans are the only ones allowed to use racial epithets in their music? Because other ethnic groups don't do that. They have enough sense not to do that. Record companies won't put out music with racial epithets of other ethnic groups. So why is it that African Americans are the only ones who are allowed to do this? What are we being set up for? Why is it that we're the only ones who are allowed to put negative, pejorative language in our music? Your music goes all around the world, okay? So let's deal with some of the history of the N-word. But before we deal with that, let's go back to the 13th century and let's deal with what happened when the Moors in Catholic Spain started to lose power. And let's look at the history of what happens when you put negative labels on people to redefine people to then justify how you want to mistreat them, okay? So here is Dr. Jose Pimenta Bay. Dr. Jose Pimenta Bay is one of the baddest scholars on the history of the Moors. He has an essay in the book Golden Age of the Moor, edited by Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. I've interviewed him years ago. I just called him yesterday. I'm trying to get him on this show and set up another interview with him. He used to teach classes on the history of the Moors at Temple University. He's now at Berea College in Kentucky. Okay, he's an assistant professor of African American studies at Berea College. Now, this is from his lecture called The Decline of Moorish Power in Spain. The Decline of Moorish Power in Spain. And at this point, he's talking about in the 13th century, right around the 13th century, when the Moors start to lose power, okay, how they are being relabeled to then change the way people think about them. Because the term Moor was a very noble term. Moor coming from the Greek word moros, M-A-U-R-O-S, the Latin word mari, M-A-U-R-I. You see in the word Maurice, you see the word Marie. Maurice is related to the Moors. You see in the term Mauritania, because the Romans are going to refer at one point to a northern region of North Africa as Mauritania. And Mauritania means land of the black-skinned people. Land of the black-skinned people. Read page 187 of Golden Age of the Moor in the essay by Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. Okay? Let's go to this clip.
They're classified. They're relabeled. They're now called by Spanish Catholic authorities not Moros anymore, or Moors. They're now called Mudehars, which means the ones to remain or the broken ones. They also use the term Morisco, which means the little Moors. It's like calling you a boy. And these are things which were implemented by the 13th century and are now going into documents, are now becoming, common practice to use that term. And we have to ask ourselves, then, what does that do if you begin to relabel people, and especially with pejorative labels? Okay? And, I'll get this in more detail when I talk about Nomo. So you have Negro, of course, being a term used to classify African captives. The countries of such captives were not recognized by their captors, and unfortunately, in time, the descendants of such captives would themselves forget their own national ethnic origin. Such efforts by European leaders, the rulers, the merchants, the clerics, who were benefiting financially, the efforts by such leaders was designed to justify a quote-unquote enlightened Christian Europe. Europe's involvement in the highly dehumanizing business of chattel slavery required a justification for their less than humane and less than Christ-like acts. Such individuals sought to put the label of slave and primitive on as much of Africa as they could. This was a more difficult task, however, when it came to those peoples known as Moorish Muslims. It was a more difficult task because too much evidence existed of the highly organized and scientific civilization of the Moors. Even the great English writer, Shakespeare, or playwright, had taken the time to write a play revealing the great nobility, but human fallibility, of the Moorish character of Othello. This was a fact which even hateful Catholic Europeans would have to concede. In other words, Europeans could essentially lie more easily about African peoples who they didn't have a whole lot of contact with, those who live below, say, the Senegal River. Europeans could more easily deny the legacy of such peoples because they were not yet in heavy contact with the European world. But the legacy of the Moors was indelible within the European culture. It existed in their coats of arms, it existed in their language, it existed in their blood.
Okay, stop it here. Okay, so that's Dr. Jose Pimenta Bay. He's explaining what happened in the 13th century in Catholic Spain. When the Moors start to lose power, they get relabeled. And in the in their public edicts of the Catholics, of the Spanish, in their everyday conversation, instead of referring to the Moors as Moors, which was a very noble term, or maybe referring to them as Moros, they start referring to them as Moristo or Muliars, okay, which are negative terms. And they're redefining, they're changing the way people think about them to then justify the mistreatment of them, to then justify expelling them, okay? So what happens when you put dehumanizing labels on people? What happens when people internalize dehumanizing labels and put on real-life minstrel shows and actually thinking that they're taking something back when they're really being trapped more by white supremacy? See, if you study the history of this country, you'll see that the dehumanization of African people has always been entertainment for Europeans. If you go back to 1828, 1829, when the minstrel shows are created, you have to study a man named T.D. Rice, Thomas Dartmouth Rice, also known as Thomas Daddy Rice. And according to the legend, he sees a slave male, boy or young man, tending to animals. And this enslaved African sings a song, turn around, jump around, I jump just so. Every time I turn around, I jump Jim Crow. Okay, so he sees this, and then he's like a vaudeville performer, right? The Thomas Daddy Rice, T.D. Rice. So what he does is he puts on tattered, torn clothing, adopts a southern slave dialect, okay, imitating African Americans, puts on blackface, and he creates this Jim Crow character. Well, white people love it, South and the North. This becomes big business. So then other white men start to put on tattered, torn clothing, put on blackface, and lampoon, dehumanize, and make fun of African Americans. So the minstrel show at one point was one of the top forms of entertainment in this country. It was big before radio even came into existence. But then it's going to go to radio. So then you have Freeman Gosden and Charles Correll, two white Jewish men, who create the Amos and Aaron Andy characters. They do it on radio, and oftentimes they perform in blackface, and Amos and Andy becomes the most popular radio show in this country. The dehumanization of African people has always been entertainment. But the problem is we have Negroes who don't understand this history, and they think that they're being allowed to use the N-word in their music, in their art, but they don't understand they are further being used by white supremacy to continue a destruction and dehumanization of their own people. This is Michael Imhotep, the African History Network. We'll be back in a few minutes, 9:10 a.m. The Superstation, the voice of Detroit. In Detroit, it's 85 degrees, partly cloudy. It's 110 in the station, because it's hot up in here. We're kicking the knowledge, weather by weather vision. We'll be back in a few minutes.
9 to AM Superstation, giving you exactly what you need.
All right, stand by. We'll be back in a few minutes. 313-209-9000 is the call-in number if you have a question. All right, guys, stand by. We're on break. We'll be back in a few minutes. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for my online class, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We'll post a link here in just a minute. Also, if you go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, you can register there as well. And we have the bundle pack there also. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the voice of Detroit. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network. Tonight we're talking about, in our first segment, we're dealing with history of the N-word. We're dealing with Ice Cube's appearance on the Bill Maher show, that whole controversy. We played a clip from Dr. Jose Pimenta Bay, one of the baddest scholars on the history of the Moors. This was a clip from his lecture, The Decline of Moorish Power in Spain, The Decline of Moorish Power in Spain. It's on our YouTube channel. That was from part 5 of the clip, The Decline of Moorish Power in Spain. So if you go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, right on the home page, click on the YouTube banner, and you can check. We have over 600 video clips. I just posted a video presentation I did yesterday, actually. Okay, so very quickly here, let's go to the phone lines. I think we have Walter. Walter, welcome to the African History Network show. Tell us where you're calling from.
Hey, my friend.
How's it going? Where you calling from, Walter?
Where I'm calling from?
Yeah, what city?
I'd rather keep that secret.
All right, go ahead with your question or comment.
It seems like, to me, I'm going to ask you a question about Bill Maher. What do you think about what he said?
I disagree with him using the term. It's not funny. I disagree with him using the term.
Yeah, as a white guy, first of all, I'm going to turn about Bill. So I'm going to tell you what I think about Bill. Foul-mouthed. What's his name? I don't even know the guy's name.
Bill Maher.
That show's on. Bill Maher. He needs to be driven far away from this country to somewhere else, because this guy always saying something stupid, man. He's first of all, he got enough. He got his comedian license out of a crackerjack box. That's how funny he is. The guy is so terrible that if you have that stupid live audience where you got nothing but to be wasting time going to see him, they'll have to use. He's the kind of person that they will have to use on half of these sitcoms. They have to use laugh tracks.
Okay, laugh tracks.
Which takes up for their lack of talent and lack of humor. And that's the kind he fits right into that. As far as his racist, I think he's being I don't think he's a racist. I think he was just saying something, to get a laugh. I'm not making excuses for him. Right. But at the same time, let me give you an example. My teenage son got into one of his best friends before. Okay. Good white family, our neighbors. Okay. Hung out together and stuff. And when they got into it, and they started throwing some blows. Okay. And so his best friend, which is a white guy, they was just cussing at each other. And one of the words that came out of his mouth was, "You in." Right. And my wife and I looked at that. We weighed it out. We talked to the father about it, and we just kind of determined that, you know what? To him, it was intuitive. It was in the heat of the moment, heat of the argument, the heat of fighting each other. That was just one more insult word or cuss word to throw at my son. And then let me point out the inconsistency about fake Negroes. Fake Negroes who love to talk about when a white man used that term. And they don't want to give him a pass, whether he was, not knowing the context of it. And then also, all of a sudden we use excuses like it's a word of endearment to each other when we use it on each other. What do you think about that?
Oh, no, it's not a word of endearment. That's a strange type of love. I don't want that type of love if you think that's a word of endearment. I don't use that as a word of endearment. That's not, no, that comes from a lack of understanding of our history. That's what that comes from. That's what that comes from. There's not a term of endearment, and we're the only ones who are allowed to put racial epithets in our music, and basically we're the only ones who are allowed to really dehumanize ourselves in our music. Because I listen to white artists, I listen to white music. When I listen to white music, like on Slacker Radio, you don't hear music that's dehumanizing to them. What, like if you go to Slacker Radio, it's an app, right? Or you can go online, slackerradio.com, and you listen to today's hits. So they play like all the latest, like top 40 music. You listen to white music. They don't play dehumanizing music that dehumanizes them. They don't do that. They're not talking about killing each other. They're not talking about a lot of excessive drug use. You hear references to drugs here and there, a little bit, here and there. But in our music, it's all in our music. Now, it's not because white people don't use drugs, because they're dropping dead of heroin overdoses all across the country. It's not because they don't use drugs. And study after study, if we look at marijuana, study after study shows that African Americans and white people use marijuana at almost identical rates.
Yes. Can I have your name?
And there was a recent study that came out late last year that talked about how white youth are more likely to use hard drugs than African Americans. So it's not because drugs aren't in their community. It's not because they don't use drugs. It's not because violence is not in their community. Because violence is in their community also. It's just not reported on the evening news like it is in our communities. But the reason why is because the record companies that control what type of music is put out, what type of topics are dealt with, they'll let us deal with that, but they won't let the white artists deal with that because they know the white artists are targeting white children. And they're not going to target those messages to their own children. But they'll allow our people to put it out and target those messages to our children.
I would say you call it white supremacy. I wouldn't call it white supremacy, because I would say that black people have a choice. They have a nature. God created everybody with a nature to choose right and wrong. Otherwise, we'll be as robots. We find no satisfaction in that. And all these excuses that people use, and I think the one you're using is an excuse, because
what excuse?
These Negroes be calling this station non-stop to all the talk show hosts. That's why I call you guys the magnet people. You talk about, bring up a racial subject, blame Donald Trump, blame white America, blame white supremacists. All of a sudden you draw a bunch of mad, angry Negroes. I call it the diary of mad, angry black people who like to pass the buck and blame it on white people. As far as white people goes, we don't have to worry about white people, because by the time we get through killing each other, none of us will be left.
We're not going to kill out everybody, but thanks for calling. You're already brain dead. Thanks for calling, Walter. Walter likes to call in. He's one of these brain damaged Negroes. He likes to call in to these radio shows. But I just let him talk, because we're broadcasting around the country on Facebook Live, so you can see some of the brain damaged Negroes here. He made a couple good points, but he's still brain damaged. So, see, white supremacy is a false concept that has real consequences and repercussions. And you have some Negroes who don't want to deal with white supremacy, because then it affects their position in life. It affects their little position they have, or the little money they have coming in from white supremacy. They're afraid to stand up and challenge it. Okay, so they'll call in brain dead. You can call into this show if you want to. You're going to get your ass kicked. Call in. Yeah. See, he calls in on Steve Hood's show when I'm on in the morning. You call in this show, ain't nobody to save your ass from me. This is my show. So you step into the Terror Dome if you want to. I don't play those type of games. So, but we got more important things to do to deal with Walter. But thanks for calling in, Walter. Okay. Speaking of Minstrel Shows, and then Walter calls in. There you go. All right. Let's go to next call, Terry. Hey, Terry, welcome to the African History Network show. Tell us where you're calling from.
Man, I am calling from Southeast Michigan.
Southeast Michigan? Southfield, okay, Southfield, Michigan, okay.
So first of all, I want to say two things.
Go ahead.
I hope you don't cut me off, because it seems like you guys are now saying, you don't like people to say the facts. You have a problem with people saying the facts.
As long as the facts are accurate, I don't have a problem with people saying the facts as long as they're accurate and can back it up if I ask a question.
Okay. Well, here's the thing, and here's what I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, in regards to this, what Black Saint saying and Bill Maher and all that type of stuff, what's the difference with what Bill Maher said and what we say and how we treat each other every day? That's my number one topic.
What do you mean? No. No, stay on the first topic. I'm asking, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? Stay on the first topic.
Well, everybody wants to jump on him for what he said.
Mm-hmm.
You know what, man? That's just about common as people drinking water every day. They say that the N-word with regularity.
I'm against us using it, and I'm against him using it. I just dealt with this. I'm against us using it in our songs, in the rap videos, in the movie. I'm against us using it. I'm against Bill Maher using it.
Yeah, but when somebody white says it,
mm-hmm.
It's a big fantastic deal. All of a sudden the world is about to cave in. People need to get off of that, man. Now let me say
well, with Bill Maher, this is on HBO live television show, and he usually doesn't use that type of language on the show. Okay, this is now. I disagree with him using it, and so everybody understands who maybe didn't see it. He called himself a house N-word. He didn't call somebody else a house N-word. Now, to me, it's still wrong, but just so people understand what happened who maybe didn't see it. Okay, he didn't call somebody that racial slur. He called himself that. It wasn't funny. Okay, go ahead to your next comment.
Now, my next thing, and I really gonna cut me off on this one, but like I said, 9-10 have a problem with that. Look, I'm not gonna down nobody or nothing, but I think it's wrong when people call in and they have a strong opinion about something like this guy Walter. I think that it's totally wrong when they have a strong opinion about something. Being opinionated people and freedom of speech, and you guys want to just cut them off and then just say, "Oh, you're not gonna call this show with that rhetoric, or this is a terror dome." Man, if y'all
this is a terror dome. He can call in. I let him talk. He talked for a while. I let him talk.
Okay.
I let him talk. Now, part of his argument was factually accurate. The other part was not factually accurate. But I let him talk. If you go back and listen, and I post these shows, I archive these shows. I have over 750 archive episodes of my shows. I let them go ahead and talk.
Okay.
Just like I let you talk. Just like I let you talk. Just like right now, I let you talk.
Which is surprising, but I think it's weird when you guys cut people off when they have something strong to say and you don't agree with it.
Well, but see, I deal with facts and evidence. You can call in if you can. I deal with facts and evidence. I don't deal with a whole lot of opinions. I deal with facts and evidence. So if you can strongly believe it and you can back it up with facts and evidence, or if I prove you wrong, then I mean there's a problem. But you can call in. People call in. I'm on every Sunday night. People call in. Now, if you, not saying you personally, but somebody call in, because we get some ignorant crank callers in, right? See, you can believe Santa Claus exists with all your heart. Okay, but that doesn't mean it's true. So I deal with facts and evidence. Okay, so that's why I ask people. I may ask somebody to back it up, especially when I know it's factually inaccurate. I may ask somebody to back it up. Yeah, but you have other people who call in who are just brain damaged.
Well, let me tell you something. Personally, I think that guy don't have a life. I think he gets off and calling these shows and stealing the body.
But that's cool. That's in the past, man. Don't even waste time worrying about that. You got another point you want to make, man? Because I don't want to cut into your time talking about him. I already dealt with him.
I appreciate it, man. You taking the time to listen to me. You have a great day.
Okay. No, did you have another point? I'm not rushing you off. I just want you to get. I just want to make sure you get your point. Okay. Okay. You straight? Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Why do we as black people treat each other the way we do? We complain and cry about what they're doing to us, all the stuff what they're doing downtown, what's not going on in the neighborhoods. Why do we always got to keep quiet and not do something ourselves and make it work? Put our money in together and do your own thing. These people ain't giving you nothing. I'm going to listen to your own opinion on that. I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, you have a lot of people doing something. You have African-American business owners. They need help. They need the same help from the city government that they give white businesses. They're giving tax breaks to the Illiches. They're giving tax breaks to the Gores to build new stadiums that most of us won't have money to go to. Okay. So, and you have gentrification going on that's systematically pushing African-Americans out of the city of Detroit. They're turning off water. They turn off water for people who can't afford it, which to me is inhumane. Okay, so you have African Americans who own businesses. There are 32,000 African American owned businesses in the city of Detroit. Last time I saw it, maybe 36,000 now. You can check with the Black Chamber of Commerce, Ken Harris, Black Chamber of Commerce. Okay. What a lot of African Americans are saying is that the same tax break you're giving white businesses to come into the city of Detroit, we want for the ones being here 20, 30 years trying to keep the lights on. The grants, the flow of money coming in, things like that. We want some of that support. It's not that people aren't doing anything. No, you have a lot of organizations, but you have a lot of people who are working. Now, personally, I think they need to have targeted economic boycotts of the white banks downtown, and maybe some select corporations, and redistribute the pain until City Hall straightens up and flies right and meets the demands of the people to support the people. I mean, personally, I think this needs to happen. You know, And you can always start with the banks. And it's good to start with the banks. Why? Because you have alternatives with African American owned banks, number one. But number two, the banks are publicly traded. So anytime you have economic boycotts, you always take your economic boycotts national. It's never just local. When you deal with a national corporation, you always take your economic boycotts nationally. It's never just local. That's how you push your agenda. Okay? If you look at North Carolina and the bathroom bill, you had over 250 businesses and corporations that had economic boycotts of North Carolina behind the bathroom bill because transgender people couldn't use the bathroom of their choice. You had the NBA who pulled the All-Star game out of North Carolina because of the bathroom bill. Now, when has the NBA canceled a game in Chicago because of the killings of African Americans in Chicago? Did the NBA cancel a game in Cleveland because Tamir Rice was shot and killed by the police, executed by Officer Timothy Loman? Did they cancel the game in anywhere in Ohio because John Crawford III was shot and killed on site in a Walmart for holding a air rifle that he picked up off the shelf in Walmart? So when you analyze this, you see that there's a clear distinction between what's going on here. So a lot of people really have to understand history, and some people don't like using the term white supremacy. If you know a better term, call in, let me know. You do know white supremacy. White supremacy is an ideology. White supremacy gives birth to the power structure of racism. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race. See, we're under the illusion that racism means you don't like people or calling people racial epithets, anything like that. No, that's bigotry. Racism occurs when one race of people control the majority of the wealth, power, resources, benefits, privileges, land, access to education, access to opportunity, media, and they use that to marginalize, subordinate, and do harm to another race of people. That's racism. Racism is a group-to-group relationship, not individual to group. We don't understand history. If you do not, as Dr. Francis Cress Wilson and Nellie Fuller correctly told us, if you do not understand European white supremacy and racism, what it is and how it works, everything, and I do mean everything else that you think that you understand, will totally confuse you. If you do not understand European white supremacy and racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you think that you understand will totally confuse you. You have to understand it as it manifests itself throughout the 9 areas of human activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. For the purpose of preserving genetic white survival on a planet that's less than 10% European. That's what racism is. One of the foundations of racism in this country goes back to 1638 in the colony of Maryland, called the Doctrine of Exclusion. Doctrine of Exclusion stated that Negroes should never be permitted to enjoy the fruits of white society. Then around 1665, it's going to be expanded to all the other colonies, and it stated that Negroes should be relegated to a non-compensated, non-competitive, managed workforce for the express comfort building of white society. Negroes should be relegated to a non-competitive, non-compensated, managed workforce for the express comfort building of white society. The doctrine of exclusion. That's racism. We don't understand it, and you can't fight what you don't understand. Read Black Label White Wealth by Dr. Carl Anderson. He deals with the doctrine of exclusion in there. It's one of the recommended reading lists. It's one of the recommended books on our reading list at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. It's also one of the books that we use in our online class, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, where they didn't teach you in school, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, where they didn't teach you in school. You can register for our online class at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, where I deal with all this type of information, a lot more. It's a 6-week, 12-hour course. We usually do it on Friday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All the sessions are recorded. You can go back and watch it over and over again if you miss anything. All right, coming up. Okay, we're coming up on the break. What are we doing? Yeah. Okay. Do we have time to take another call, or what are we doing?
You want to take one more call?
Yeah, let's squeeze a call in here before we get to the break, because I got to get to the etymological derivation of the N word on the other side of the break. Let's go. Who do you have here? This is Abdullah. Abdullah, welcome to the African History Network show, man. We got about a minute or two before the break. Go ahead quickly.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for calling. But I tell everybody wherever I go to listen to Imhotep because he lays it out. He's not afraid to tell the truth.
Oh, yeah, thank you, man. No. This is not Scared Negro Radio.
Right. Yeah, right. That's what I like about that tell. Yeah, got to bring everybody on there to make it, as well. You can tell by the mouth and make it plain.
Make it plain. Yes.
But some people, you can talk to and try to show them something, and you be trying to help them. And they're coming against you, you know.
Right.
And this is the sad thing, you know, brother. But don't let nobody make you feel bad because you're doing a great job. See?
Oh, no. Don't worry about that, man. All right.
Yeah, brother. That's right. You got it. Thank you.
All right, Brother Abdullah. Thanks for calling. Okay, you listen to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. The Superstation, the voice of Detroit. I'm Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network. When we come back, we'll deal with the etymological origins of the word Negro and the N-word as well. 9:10 a.m. The voice of Detroit. We'll be back in a few minutes.
If you want to hear the voices of Detroit.
All right. All right, guys, stand by. We're on break. We'll be back in a couple minutes here. We'll post a link again. You can register for my online class, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maher, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. All right, how's everybody doing tonight? Share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. All right, hold on. Gotta put this on. All right, so we have Derek Martin, Ben Gorgie. Okay, you got a book at home, Black Labor, White Wealth. The NFL won't do anything about Kaepernick. Well, a lot of the owners of the NFL teams are white male bigots, white supremacists, so they don't want Kaepernick on their team. A lot of them disagree with his stance against the national anthem and national flag.
Hi, what's up?
So. Yeah, a lot of them don't. They don't want him on the team.
Okay, cool. All right. Just to make sure, though, on the ins and outs, like the
So-
sections to put the between the lines and stuff.
Okay, no problem. That's cool.
All right, hold
All right.
on.
Make sure it's set up fine. Thank
Okay,
you.
no problem. Thank you. Bye.
So Jason Whitlock said that LeBron James shouldn't talk about racism, basically because LeBron James is rich and racism just basically affects poor African Americans. Jason Whitlock does not understand what racism, white supremacy is, because racism comes out of white supremacy. And tell that to Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick's not poor. Colin Kaepernick is basically wealthy. I mean, you know, as far for athletes, you know, especially for African Americans, he's wealthy. He's not Bill Gates wealthy, but he's a multimillionaire if he, you know, handle his money correctly. He can't get another gig. Why is that? Because of white supremacy and racism. See, Jason Whitlock doesn't want to tell the truth. Okay? Jason Whitlock doesn't want to tell the truth. All right? But you have these Negroes that would do this so they can maintain their position or what have you. And we need to expose them because they're not doing us any good.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the voice of Detroit. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. Hey, you can register for my online class, also Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maher, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school, okay? And we deal with a lot of this information there. We deal with thousands of years of history in that online class. Visit AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can also sign up for our course bundle where you can register for 4 of my online classes. And all the classes are, we do them live, but we record them. You can go back and watch them over and over again. Okay, so right before the break, we were talking about Bill Maher, Ice Cube, on the Bill Maher show, Real Time with Bill Maher on HBO. Ice Cube was on Friday. That was June 9th. June 9th. Responding to Bill Maher's use of a racial slur, house N-word, and I don't think I've ever heard a white person refer to himself as a house N-word. That's okay, whatever. But so we were dealing some with what happens when you relabel people with negative pejorative terms, and why negative terms have been put on us historically, and we dealt with some of the origins of the minstrel shows, because the dehumanization of African people in this country has always been entertainment for Europeans. And you go back to the minstrel shows, the creation of the minstrel shows, T.D. Rice, Thomas Dartmouth Rice, 1828, 1829, creating the Jim Crow character, puts on blackface. Minstrel shows become one of the top forms of entertainment in this country. You look at books like 10 Little N-Word Boys, you look at Little Black Sambo, you're going to see this. You're going to see, later on, you're going to see things like Uncle Remus, you have nursery rhymes. 1916, a man named Harry C. Brown records a song for Columbia Records called N-Word Level Watermelon, Ha Ha Ha. N-word level watermelon, ha ha ha. Becomes a big hit. Lampooning, dehumanizing African Americans. Okay. Now here is once again, here is Dr. Jose Pimenta Bay. Dr. Jose Pimenta Bay is one of the baddest scholars on the history of the Moors. He has an essay in the book Golden Age of the Moor, which is edited by Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. And I've interviewed him before. I called him yesterday. I'm trying to get him on my show. He used to teach classes on the history of the Moors at Temple University. Okay, and this is from part 5 of the decline of Moorish power in Spain. And he's talking about in the 13th century, right around the 13th century, when the Moors start to lose power in Spain. And the Moors, they were looked at by many Europeans as to be almost superhuman. They were taking teachings from ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, into Spain and Portugal. The Iberian Peninsula, they go in 711 AD. They introduced algebra. They introduced something called alchemy, which today we call chemistry. They introduced all types of foods, musical instruments, medicine, science, all different types of things into Europe. The first university in Europe, University of Salamanca in Spain, was built in 1285 AD by African Moors and Arabs. A lot of your early European universities, University of Toledo, University of Bologna, University of Barcelona, things like this, they were built to study the Moorish science text, the teachings that the Moors take into Europe. Okay, so here is Dr. Jose Pimenta Bay. It's just about 4 minutes, I think, and he's talking about what happens when you relabel a people with negative pejorative terms. Let's go to this clip. Yeah, turn up here, please.
And Moors, they're now called mudehars, which means the ones to remain or the broken ones. They also use the term morisco, which means the little Moors. It's like calling you a boy.
All right.
And these are things which were implemented by the 13th century and are now going into documents, and now it's now becoming, common practice to use that term. And we have to ask ourselves then, what does that do if you begin to relabel people, and especially with pejorative labels? Okay, and I'll get this in more detail when I talk about Nomo. So you have Negro, of course, being a term used to classify African captives. The countries of such captives were not recognized by their captors, and unfortunately, in time, the descendants of such captives would themselves forget their own national ethnic origin. Such efforts by European leaders the rulers, the merchants, the clerics who were benefiting financially. The efforts by such leaders was designed to justify a quote-unquote enlightened Christian Europe. Europe's involvement in the highly dehumanizing business of chattel slavery required a justification for their less than humane and less than Christ-like acts. Such individuals sought to put the label of slave and primitive on as much of Africa as they could. This was a more difficult task, however, when it came to those peoples known as Moorish Muslims. It was a more difficult task because too much evidence existed of the highly organized and scientific civilization of the Moors. Even the great English writer, Shakespeare, or playwright, had taken the time to write a play revealing the great nobility, but human fallibility, of the Moorish character of Othello. This was a fact which even hateful Catholic Europeans would have to concede. In other words, Europeans could essentially lie more easily about African peoples who they didn't have a whole lot of contact with, those who lived below, say, the Senegal River. Europeans could more easily deny the legacy of such peoples because they were not yet in heavy contact with the European world. But the legacy of the Moors was indelible within the European culture. It existed in their coats of arms, it existed in their language, it existed in their blood.
Okay, let's stop it here. Okay, so that's Dr. Jose Pimenta Bay. Break it down. What happens when you put negative, pejorative, dehumanizing terms on people? If we take it a step further, what happens when you're allowed by white corporations, white-owned record companies, to put it in your music and spread it all around the world? How does that change the way people perceive you and treat you? Because this becomes a justification for the mass incarceration. This becomes a justification of the war on drugs. This is because what you're doing is dehumanizing people. And Dr. Joy DeGruy on post-traumatic slave syndrome, she talks about cognitive dissonance and how you relabel people to then justify the mistreatment of them, to dehumanize them, to appease your conscience, because you're treating people in a way you wouldn't treat other people who you perceive just like you. Okay? So this is what's taking place. Now, and once again, that's from The Decline of Moorish Power in Spain. That's part 5 by Dr. Jose Pimenta Bay, B-E-Y. If you go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, click on the YouTube banner at the top of the page. Takes you to our YouTube channel, and you can search for that there on YouTube. Okay, so if we look at the origin, the etymological origin of the term Negro, okay, and the N-word as well, all right? And we talked about how we're the only people who are allowed to dehumanize ourselves in our music. The other thing is that if you go back to 1995 when Michael Jackson had the song, They Don't Really Care About Us, he had a line in there that said something like "Jew me, sue me," things like. He had a couple of racial epithets that people perceived as that. The Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, came out after him, and they put pressure on Sony. I think it was Sony at the time, his record company, and Sony pulled every last one of those CDs off the shelf, took that line out of it, or two lines or so out of it, and then put it back on the shelf. Now, this wasn't a song that had a racial epithet in the title of the song, like some of our songs do, like one by Bobby Shmurda, Hot N-Word, which was a big hit for him a couple of years ago. This was just a couple of lines in the song. If you look at Rick Ross, I wrote an article about Rick Ross last year, I think it was. Rick Ross had a song on his Black Market CD. I think it was his Black Market CD. And he had a song that talked about killing Donald Trump. Now, this was when Donald Trump was a candidate. He wasn't president. He was a candidate. Now, let me rephrase that. He didn't have a song about killing Donald Trump. He had one line in the song that talked about killing Donald Trump. One line in the song that talked about killing Donald Trump. So what happened was you had this white vlogger, a video blogger, and he contacted Sam's Club and Walmart and some other national chains that carried this CD. And Walmart pulled the entire CD off the shelf for one line in one song. Now, I don't condone talking about killing a public figure like that, or really killing anybody, because if you listen to, like, you know, when I travel, I listen to Slacker Radio, right? So I listen to the day's hits sometimes. I'll listen to, like, the R&B channel, but I listen to the day's hits sometimes. You know, just see what the music is out there. And today's hits, most of the hit is like top 40 music. So most of the artists are white, right? They'll play Drake, they'll play Nicki Minaj, they'll play Lil Wayne, they'll play the big crossover African-American artists. But most of the artists are white. When you listen to their music, they're not talking about killing people. They're not talking about guns. They're not talking about shooting people. Now, you may find a song here or there. You may have one woman talk about keying a guy's car or something like that. Okay? You don't have a whole lot of talk about drugs. You may have it here or there. You know, it's not a whole song about drugs, usually. When you listen to their music, it's entirely different. When you listen to our music, a lot of, especially hip hop, first of all, when you listen to a lot of white artists, they're talking usually more about love, relationships, and marriage, oftentimes. You listen to a lot of hip hop, commercialized hip hop. I'm not against hip hop. I grew up listening to hip hop. I'm against negative commercialized hip hop, which brings about a mental genocide of our people and our youth. The negative hip hop is more likely to talk about promiscuity, drugs, have a lot of profanity in it, a lot of vulgarities. Now, some people say, well, it's an FCC issue. I was on a panel about a month ago at at the Dabo Center here in Detroit for Hood Research. And it was a panel dealing with Clear the Airways, the Clear the Airways project. And it was dealing with the mental effects of negative hip-hop. And yeah, some people think, oh, it's an FCC issue. Well, the same FCC laws that apply to African-American artists, like Ice Cube and Lil Wayne and Nicki Minaj, they apply to white artists like Coldplay, okay, Taylor Swift. They don't have a different set of FCC regulations, but the record companies have a different standard because they have more respect for their own people because they don't want that garbage targeted to their children. See, it's coming out of white supremacy, and it's a decency issue. They don't have respect for our youth, which is why they'll use our artists to covertly attack our youth with the music. Because if you want to destroy a nation, you do it through the music, because the music hits the youth first. If you want to take out a billboard right now on I-75 that says smoke weed every day, you can't do it. Violates the law. But you can put smoke weed every day in the music, and it's no problem. So when you sit back and do a systems analysis, as opposed to getting caught up in the paralysis of analysis, you start asking questions. Well, wait a second. Why are we being targeted like this? You ask the question, why are we being targeted like this? And you justify the dehumanization of people to justify the mistreatment. Okay, so then you can have mass incarceration, you can have over policing, you can have disparities when it comes to education, you can have over incarceration when it comes to children in schools, and you can justify it by the way they're being portrayed. This is why Malcolm X said the media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the ability to make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent, and that's power because they control the minds of the masses. He said the media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the ability to make the guilty innocent and the innocent guilty. And that's power because they control the minds of the masses. All right? And what you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you have been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Okay, so we have to understand the power of the media. This is why I've been studying media for 25 years. This is why I'm in media. Read the article that I wrote March 28, 2016 called Pastor Says, Pastor, Pastor says radio won't play songs about killing animals, but play songs about killing black people. Pastor says radio won't play songs about killing animals, but play songs about killing black people. How is it that you can't make songs about killing dogs? You can't make songs about killing cats, but it's all right to make songs about killing African Americans. That's not an FCC issue. No, that's the record companies won't do that. If you go back to the 1990s, Ice-T, the original gangster, Ice-T had a heavy metal group called Body Count. Body Count. And Ice-T had a song called Cop Killer. And it was about crooked cops, and in the song he was talking about killing a crooked cop. I don't think he's talking about killing all crooked cops, but he's talking about killing the police officer. Well, at the time, it was Warner Brothers, I think, was his record company, because Time was like the parent company. And the police unions across the country rose up against the song. They pulled it off the shelf. One song on the CD. Now, you can have 15 songs on the CD talking about killing us, is no problem. So you have to ask the question, why is it that every other group is protected except us? You can't put out songs about negativity about homosexuals, especially in the title, calling them different derogatory terms, things like this. You can't put out songs I don't care how bad of a rapper you are, how big of a quote-unquote thug you are, Put out songs calling Jews racial epithets and see what happens to your career. See how far you get. Record company won't even put that out. So you have to ask the question, then, how is it that we're the only ones that you can target and put out dehumanizing music like that about? Now, many of these artists are very talented. All hip-hop is not negative. Arrested Development is still around. You got a group out of Baltimore. A group of beautiful young sisters. Watoto on the Nile. Watoto of the Nile. Children of the Nile. Okay, they have a Black Wall Street song. Okay, so if we look at the etymology of the etymological origin of the word Negro and the N-word. So Negro, N-E-G-R-O, means member of a black-skinned race of Africa. Member of a black-skinned race of Africa. Goes back to the 1550s. 1550s AD. One source I saw said 1555 AD. It's from the Spanish or Portuguese language. It was in both languages. Spain and Portugal are right next to each other. Okay, this was the Iberian Peninsula back in the 8th century when the Moors go in. Okay, so Negro is Spanish and or Portuguese. Okay, and it meant black or a black thing. Black or a black thing. It's from the Latin word Niger, N-I-G-E-R, and also nigrum, N-I-G-R-U-M. Okay, but you'll see it in Merriam-Webster. They have it derived from Niger, N-I-G-E-R, and you'll also see Niger, N-I-G-R, without the E. And in Latin, Niger means black, dark, sable, dusky. Okay. And then you have, let's see, as an adjective, it's from the 1590s AD. The use of a capital N for Negro generally comes from the early 20th century, especially in the U.S. Okay, now you see the term going back to amongst the French. Negre, N-E-G-R-E. You'll see that around around the 18th century, 1700s, and it comes from the Spanish in the in the 1550s, Spanish and Portuguese. Okay, which comes from the Latin. Now, some people will take it back to Inger or injure, which is Kemetic, from ancient Kemet, from the Medu Netter. Some people try to, which is a Kemetic word for God. You'll see it spelled N-G-R. N-G-R. Some people pronounce it Inger. Some people pronounce it Inger. E-N-J-E-R. They'll pronounce it like that. Some people take it back to that or Nagas, N-E-G-U-S, Negusti, things like this. These Ethiopian terms, which means king or emperor or something like that, king. But to bring it closer to dealing with the European languages, you're going to have a corruption of Negro, okay? So if we look at the etymology of the N-word, we see that 1568, you have the Scottish and Northern England dialect using the term neger, N-E-G-E-R, and the N-word is a corruption of that. That goes back to 1786. From now, the source that I'm looking at, because I use Etym Online, E-T-Y-M-O-N-L-I-N-E, Etym Online, E-T-Y-M-O-N-L-I-N-E, Etym Online. So this is the etymological dictionary. It's free. You can check it out. Type in Negro. Type in N-word. It gives you the history behind those words. You can also go to Merriam.
You're referring to different languages. Did you ever discover or understand or know the way the Germans use the word Neger? Okay,
they had Neger, N-E-G-G-E-R, Austrian and German.
Okay. Okay. There was a governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Neger.
And he was on an interview, on TV. I don't know if it's on the tube or not. And they asked him what his name meant. And it says, he told him it meant his grandfather was a blacksmith. So Schweitzer means black. So his name is Neger. I don't know. Let's think about it. Let's talk about it.
Neger.
Okay.
N-E-G-G-E-R. Yeah, I've got it because I'm going to deal with that. That was coming up next, dealing with Neger.
Yes, but the word Schweitzer is also connected to that. He said his name meant blacksmith. I don't think so. No. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks for calling. Okay, so Neger, N-E-G-G-E-R, is Austrian and German for Negro. And if you look geographically, Austria and Germany are next to each other. The Moors were in Austria and Germany also. Schwarz means black or dark or swarthy. Okay, so and Dr. Jose Pimenta Bay actually talks about this. So Schwarzenegger means it can mean the black Negro, or it also means the black plowman, P-L-O-U-G-H-M-A-N. Okay, but Neger, N-E-G-G-E-R, is Austrian and German for Negro, N-E-G-E-R-O. Okay, and Negro, Spanish and Portuguese for black or a black thing. Okay, now what's going to happen is, as Africans are conquered and enslaved, and this is what Dr. Jose Pimenta Bay was talking about, the word Negro is going to be put on them to denote them as a captive or a slave, and it's going to be put on them to dehumanize them also. Okay, so this is why history is so important. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you've been taught about yourself. And what you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. All right? All right, so I'm glad she called in talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger, N-E-G-G-E-R. And if you read Golden Age of the Moor, edited by Dr. Ivy Van Sertima, if you check out the video on YouTube of Dr. Jose Pimenta Bay, one of the things Dr. Jose Pimenta Bay deals with is the etymology of different names. Like Mormon, like the Mormon church. Mormon is Dutch for Moor, M-O-O-R. You can study history by studying the etymology of words, okay? And you're going to see when you hear words like Maurice, or you hear Saint Maurice. Okay, well, Mauri, Mauri is the prefix, and Mauri is what the Romans at one point in Latin are going to refer to African people as. So when you have the word Mauritania, Mauritania means land of the black-skinned people. And the Romans at one time referred to a North African region as Mauritania. If you read page 187, The Golden Age of the Moor, Dr. Jose Pimenta Bay breaks this down etymologically. But you're going to have variations of the word Moor throughout Spanish language, in the French language. You have it in Latin. And you're going to see this take place in different European countries that the Moors go into also. Okay? Okay. All right, so 313-209-9000 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. 313-209-9000 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. Hopefully this helps you learn something tonight. And if you want to clean up the airwaves, negative hip-hop music, then we'll tell you how to do that on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. The Voice of Detroit. We'll be back in a few minutes. Superstation, The Voice of Detroit. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. Be sure to visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for our online class, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school, okay? And all the sessions are recorded. If you miss anything, you can go back and watch it over and over again. All right, so I wanted to get to this topic here with James Comey. And right before the break, I said, okay, so to clear up the airway, you have to understand that you have to cut it off at the source. A lot of people want to go after the radio stations. And you can do that, but you really want to cut off at the source. Okay, so people have to look at economic withdrawal strategies targeted at the record companies and their subsidiaries that put out negative hip hop. You can call the distributors, but you have to target it at the source, and then also look at your pension fund dollars, your 401k dollars, and if they are invested in companies that put out negative hip hop, look at divesting from that. Okay, but you I think in the past, and like back in the 1990s when you had C. Dolores Tucker, I don't think they took an economic withdrawal strategy towards it. You have to do an economic withdrawal strategy, okay, to target it. And at the same time, you cannot demonize the artists. If you demonize the artists, you're going to lose the youth. You can't demonize the artists, okay? They contribute to it, but they can also be an asset to your cause. You can't demonize the artist. Majority of the responsibility falls on the record companies because these are adults, and the suits, they control what type of music goes out, what's said, who it's said about, things like this. Okay, and it's a double standard because they don't have a lot of white artists putting out that type of music for the most part, especially commercialized that gets played on the radio, but they'll let our artists do it.